Greetings, everyone. My name is Thomas. Thank you for tuning in to this video. Today, we are going to talk about truth and a few aspects of truth, the scientific, mathematical, religious, and being a seeker after truth. And in fact, I've said all this on the overview already. So after looking at being a seeker after truth, we'll touch on briefly the independent investigation of truth. So, interesting question. Is there absolute, fully disclosable truth in the human realm? Turns out this is a rather complicated question. So let's examine three areas. First, we'll look at scientific truth. How does that work? Well, we observe the world, we create a theory, and then we test the theory. In fact, a theory is never actually proven. If it survives the test, then the theory survives for now, but it is disproven if it fails. And if it fails, maybe we reformulate the theory, maybe we entirely discard it because our understanding was faulty, but we do take some action. So at any moment, we may hold things as, and I quote, scientific truths, which may be incorrect. And actually that term maybe has to be really well understood, because a scientific truth is something that we for now hold to be reflective of our understanding, but it could be disproven in the future. Now, over the long term, incorrect theories are ultimately revealed and either discarded or understood as adequate only within a limited scope, and perhaps not with the broad or grandiose idea that we may have started with. So our understanding evolves, and to show this, I'll use the example of the Earth motion around the sun, or in fact, as people once thought, the sun's motion around the Earth. So let's look at how we used to view it and how we view it now. Of course, some of this view actually does predate any notion of a scientific method. And this can be told as a very long story. I've seen a documentary series on this topic, right? Hours that reveal the history of how we viewed this. But let's just pick a few points here. So let's go back a long, long way. And we believed that the Earth is the center of the universe. Everything revolves around it and in circles, as it turns out. Well, as it turns out, this is all entirely wrong. From more careful observation, we could see that there was a so-called retrograde motion of planets. And so we added epicycles, which are circles centered upon the circles of the planet and sun orbits around the Earth. And that better described the motion that we could observe in the heavens. So this is better, but it's still wrong. Then we finally understood that the Earth is not the center, rather the sun is the center. And more careful observation showed the orbits to be ellipses. Each planet has its own unique orbital ellipse on its own plane of inclination. And so a little bit more complicated than the original idea. So do we think that's right? Well, as it turns out, the sun isn't the center of the universe, nor is it even the center of our solar system, but it is a large mass contributor to the center of gravity, and everything revolves around that mutual center of gravity. And then we understood our solar system is just one of a countless number among the stars that we see in the heavens. And our place in the galaxy is not even central to the galaxy. And so we continue to evolve our understanding. However, let's appreciate, though, that yes, our understanding evolves, but this should not undermine the whole idea of science. So It's a noble process of discovery. The object of science is truth. And our understanding the material world is vitally important to human progress. So this is simply an acknowledgement that scientific discovery is a process which should be pursued, and for that matter, pursued with the highest degree of truthfulness and trustworthiness. Well, let's look at a second realm, mathematics. Is this perhaps where we will find absolute truth? Well, truth, yes. Absolute, well, let's think about how we mean that word. There is always more to discover, even in mathematics. So again, here we see continual evolution. It began, we think, from simple counting and measurement. Mathematics then expanded to a systematic study of the shapes and motions of physical objects. It further expanded through application of abstraction, imagination, and logic to the broad, complex, and increasingly abstract ways of thinking, and that's how we achieve the discipline that we have today. There is always more truth to come. And just as a segue, there is an interesting link between the evolution of mathematics with the rise of civilizations. So first we see progress coming from Mesopotamia and Babylon. Then revolutionary developments occurred in ancient Greece, who, by the way, their philosophers were influenced by the Jewish philosophers. So then we see China and India take up the mantle of progress, and then Rome. And then the medieval Islamic Empire made tremendous advances. Those advances essentially were exported to Europe through the migration of Islamic knowledge and attitudes and thinking, and this sparked the Renaissance. Of course, we're not done. Then we saw the amazing exponential growth of complexity and abstraction worldwide, beginning in the 19th century, sparked by the spiritual energies of the dispensations of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. So relatively recent, 1844 was the start of that dispensation of the Bab, 1852 of Baha'u'llah. So we see progressive thinking in both of these realms. However, we note scientific theories can be wrong along the way. And remember, they're never proven to be correct, but they certainly can be proven to be incorrect. And our understanding improves over time, even if we have some missteps along the path. Now, mathematics is different, barring any errors, of course. New mathematical theories can be proven strictly within its own realm. However, in both realms of science and of mathematics, there is progression of thought. So what about a third realm, religious truth? Shoghi Effendi wrote in a special statement to the United Nations Committee on Palestine, the fundamental principle enunciated by Baha'u'llah, the followers of his faith firmly believe, is that religious truth is not absolute, but relative. So we see numerous statements along this line that show the gradual unfolding of guidance, that is, of religious truth, or we can use the term progressive revelation. These mean a similar thing. In the Bible, the Gospel according to John, we read, I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth, for he shall not speak of himself. And then it continues for a little bit. So we see from the words of Christ, and then these are echoed from all of the manifestations indeed, that the truth that we are given is limited by our capacity to um, to utilize that truth or to comprehend it. It's not just from one dispensation to another where we see gradual unfolding. Even within one dispensation, we can see this. Just as there is a dawn of the sun, which then gradually rises, rather than instantaneously ascending to the full zenith of its intensity. If it did that, our plants would just all burn up, right? They can't take that absolute sudden transition from dark to full intensity of light. We see other examples, and we could just go on and on about that. I just recently posted a YouTube video on the revised Bahá'í calendar. And there's another wonderful example of gradual unfolding. The Bab reviewed the calendar somewhere in around 1847, 1848, and left it to the good pleasure of Baha'u'llah to either adopt it or to entirely discard it. Well, Baha'u'llah did adopt it and added some things to it, which increased the our understanding of how everything works together, but he left some gaps. And finally, only a few years ago, the Universal House of Justice addressed those things that were not yet determined, and we, as a result, have this revised calendar. So this gradual unfoldment of something so simple as a calendar occurred over a period of well over 150 years. We could give other examples in the Babi dispensation of how the Babis first perceived who is the Bab, right? First thinking that he is merely that new intermediary between the hidden 12th Imam and the world. And others, I'm sure, knew something more profound than that. And the Bab counseled the Babis not to, I can't express this very well, but not to go too far in their teaching, right? Not to reveal everything that even they know. And it wasn't until the conference at Badasht when the Babi community, right, some of the more leading figures in the community finally grasped that the Babi faith is actually coming from a manifestation of God. It's not just a reform movement of Islam. And so, right, gradual unfoldment. And not to flog this topic too much, but we see another example when we think about education. It's gradual. We can't instantly go to university to get our PhD being a newborn. We have wildly more humble beginnings. Like we have to figure out how to eat. How do we utter our first intelligible syllable and string them together to form words? How do we recognize letters? How do we read words, right? I mean, we have to learn all these things before we're ready even to go to any kind of higher level of education. So what is the unfoldment of religious truth, if not our most important educational process? So religious truth is disclosed to us by the manifestations of God, right? We can say these are the prophets with a capital P, not so much the prophets with a lowercase p, right? Or messengers with a capital M. If we go back to Islam, we have the concept of Nabi and Rasul, right? The prophets and the messengers. And Baha'u'llah actually gives us a whole new term, the manifestations of God. So unlike theories of science, which must be tested over time, the disclosure by the manifestations of God is always true, even as they are incomplete disclosures of the truth. And this resembles the progression of mathematics, where even along the way, what we have is true. But in this case, Anything that is withheld from us is due to the human limitations. We cannot bear more at that time. It wouldn't make any sense to us. Can you imagine in the time of, let's say, Moses, him teaching about the need for world unity? And no one even had a concept of the vastness of the world and of all these peoples all over the world. And so it wouldn't have made any sense, would have had no meaning. However, these truths do gradually come in to humanity, and as we can take more, we are given more. There's another interesting process of gradualness. These truths, unfortunately, gradually become obscured afterwards. And I'm sharing here a quotation from Abdu'l-Baha in Some Answered Questions. It is clear and evident, then, that the religion of God does not preserve its original precepts among the people, but that it is gradually changed and altered to the point of being entirely effaced. And thus a new manifestation appears, and a new religion is established. For if the former religion had not been changed and altered, there would be no need for renewal. So here we're going to look at religion as one continuum of guidance. And we'll start with this quotation from the amazing promise of world peace message from the House of Justice to the peoples of the world. Had humanity seen the educators of its collective childhood in their true character as agents of one civilizing process, it would no doubt have reaped incalculably greater benefits from the cumulative effects of their successive missions. This, alas, it has failed to do. And so humanity has tragically failed to apply this concept of progression in religion and failed to more properly allow each one to build upon the understandings of the others. And although in fact this does happen, right? And humanity progresses in civilization, and that progress alone does enable the next message to be something that takes us to a next level. But notwithstanding, there wasn't a direct application. So this failure is one cause of disagreements between followers of religions. We observe human knowledge is always advancing in material matters. It's always advancing in civilization. There likewise must be continuing advancement in spiritual matters, in our comprehension of God's will for us. We do observe such progress very clearly as we study the world religions with openness, but without an open mind and heart, we fail to notice. I actually teach a class called Exploring the Great World Religions. And in that class, the premise is to see the religions as all coming from the one source, right? From our beloved Almighty God, the creator of all things. And that if we look for the unity, we will find it. Of course, if we get bogged down in the dogmatic differences, which are largely human contrived anyway, then we fail to see. So we are meant to see all religions as one continuum of guidance, as the one cause of God, and not as them battling each other for the hearts of humanity. God does not compete against himself. It's we humans who have created the idea of competition and contention and the differences between them. I do need to take a brief segue, though, for a moment, because you may get a false impression by some of the comments I made on science that of diminishing science and the value of it. And that's certainly not intended. We see science and religion as both having the aim of unfolding a greater measure of truth. There's hundreds of quotations we could cite on their relationship. I'm only going to share one right now. This is from Abdul Baha in Paris Talks. We may think of science as one wing and religion as the other. A bird needs two wings for flight. One alone would be useless. Any religion that contradicts science or that is opposed to it is only ignorance, for ignorance is the opposite of knowledge. Religion which consists only of rites and ceremonies of prejudice is not the truth. Let us earnestly endeavor to be the means of uniting religion and science. Ali, the son-in-law of Muhammad, said, "That which is in conformity with science is also in conformity with religion." Whatever the intelligence of man cannot understand, religion ought not to accept. Religion and science walk hand in hand, and any religion contrary to science is not the truth. So they both seek the truth. So, speaking of seeking truth, this is a lengthy paragraph from the Kitab-i-Iqan, and so I'll recite this paragraph and then look at it, just reiterate it in point form, and then we'll move on to the next paragraph after this one and do the same. We'll reiterate in its point form. But, O my brother, when a true seeker determineth to take the step of search in the path leading to the knowledge of the Ancient of Days, he must before all else cleanse and purify his heart, which is the seat of the revelation of the inner mysteries of God, from the obscuring dust of all acquired knowledge and the illusions of the embodiments of satanic fancy. He must purge his breast, which is the sanctuary of the abiding love of the beloved, of every defilement, and sanctify his soul from all that pertaineth to water and clay, from all shadowy and ephemeral attachments. He must so cleanse his heart that no remnant of either love or hate may linger therein, lest that love blindly incline him to error, or that hate repel him away from the truth. Even as thou dost witness in this day how most of the people, because of such love and hate, are bereft of the immortal face, have strayed far from the embodiments of the divine mysteries, and shepherdless are roaming through the wilderness of oblivion and error. That seeker must at all times put his trust in God, must renounce the peoples of the earth, detach himself from the world of dust, and cleave unto him who is the Lord of Lords. He must never seek to exalt himself above anyone, must wash away from the tablet of his heart every trace of pride and vainglory, must cling unto patience and resignation, observe silence, and refrain from idle talk. For the tongue is a smoldering fire, and excess of speech a deadly poison. Material fire consumeth the body, whereas the fire of the tongue devoureth both heart and soul. The force of the former lasteth but for a time, whilst the effects of the latter endure a century. You can see a link at the bottom right of the page where you can grab that paragraph if you want to dwell on it. So let's just summarize this. And this isn't a summary of every point. It's just the summary of these characteristics of being a seeker after truth. So we're told to cleanse and purify the heart from what? Obscuring dust of all acquired knowledge, and from illusions of the embodiments of satanic fancy, or maybe to put it in other terms, my own humble interpretation, from self-indulgent ideas. We're to purge the breast of every defilement, sanctify the soul from all that pertains to the material world or earthly attachments. In the square brackets, those are my wordings, not the exact wordings from the icon. Cleanse the heart that no remnant of love or hate may linger. Put trust in God. Detach from the people and things of the material world. Cleave unto him who is the Lord of Lords. Never seek to exalt oneself. Wash away every trace of pride and vainglory. Cling to patience and resignation. Observe silence, refrain from idle talk. But this is just half of the counsel from Baha'u'llah. Here's the other half. That seeker should also regard backbiting as grievous error and keep himself aloof from its dominion, inasmuch as backbiting quencheth the light of the heart and extinguisheth the life of the soul. He should be content with little and be freed from all inordinate desire. He should treasure the companionship of those that have renounced the world and regard avoidance of boastful and worldly people a precious benefit. At the dawn of every day, he should commune with God, and with all his soul persevere in the quest of his beloved. He should consume every wayward thought with the flame of his loving mention, and with the swiftness of lightning pass by all else save him. He should succor the dispossessed and never withhold his favor from the destitute. He should show kindness to animals, how much more unto his fellow man, to him who is endowed with the power of utterance. He should not hesitate to offer up his life for his beloved, nor allow the censure of the people to turn him away from the truth. He should not wish for others that which he doth not wish for himself, nor promise that which he doth not fulfill. With all his heart should the seeker avoid fellowship with evildoers and pray for the remission of their sins. He should forgive the sinful and never despise his low estate, for none knoweth what his own end shall be. How often hath a sinner at the hour of death attained to the essence of faith, and quaffing the immortal draught, hath taken his flight unto the celestial concourse. And how often hath a devout believer at the hour of his soul's ascension been so changed as to fall into the nethermost fire. Our purpose in revealing these convincing and weighty utterances is to impress upon the seeker that he should regard all else beside God as transient and count all things save him who is the object of all adoration as utter nothingness. And again, we have a source here. You can capture this exact paragraph. And so to summarize the qualities or the counsels of being a seeker after truth from this paragraph 214, the seeker is to regard backbiting as grievous error, be content with little, freed from all inordinate desire. Treasure the companionship of the detached people. Avoid boastful and worldly people. Commune with God every dawn. Persevere in the quest of the beloved. Consume every wayward thought with the flame of his loving mention. Swiftly pass by all else save him. Succor the dispossessed, never withhold favor from the destitute. Show kindness to animals, how much more unto fellow men. No hesitation to sacrifice, not allowing the censure of people to turn oneself away from the truth. Wish for others as one would wish for oneself, and keep our promises. Avoid fellowship with evildoers. Pray for remission of their sins. Forgive the sinful, never despise their low estate. Regard all else besides God as transient. So these are mighty counsels. And of course, you notice that the word truth in these paragraphs is capitalized. And so the ultimate truth, of course, is recognition of the manifestation of God for this day. So just briefly, let's turn our attention to this notion of the independent investigation of truth. We see this in numerous locations in the sacred writings and in the writings of Abdu'l-Baha for clarification. So in the Arabic hidden words number 2, we read, O son of spirit, the best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not away therefrom, if thou desirest me, and neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. We could discuss this particular hidden word for quite a long time. There's so much insight that we can get from it. But I'm just going to pull out the one point, and that is that seeking after truth is an important way that justice manifests at a personal level. Of course, this is true at the societal level as well, right? But it is a single aspect of it. Abdu'l-Baha builds on this and perhaps makes a little bit more clear. Discover for yourselves the reality of things and strive to assimilate the methods by which noble-mindedness and glory are attained among the nations and people of the world. No man should follow blindly his ancestors and forefathers. Nay, each must see with his own eyes, hear with his own ears, and investigate independently in order that he may find the truth. Now, does this mean that we can't listen to the ideas of others? Quite the contrary, right? We're counseled to use consultation. We share our perceptions and what we think is the truth. And then in that fullness of all the consultation, then we can personally decide what rings to be the truth to us. And it's our responsibility to see that with our own eyes. Even though we may listen to others, in the end, we hear with our own ears, see with our own eyes, and determine reality for ourselves. Furthermore, we're counseled in so many places as well to help others independently investigate truth. And I'm pulling out this one paragraph from the Kitab-i-Iqan. It's paragraph 29 on page 31. What oppression is more grievous than that a soul seeking the truth and wishing to attain unto the knowledge of God should not know where to go for it and from whom to seek it? For opinions have sorely differed, and the ways unto the attainment of God have multiplied. This oppression is the essential feature of every revelation. Unless it cometh to pass, the Son of Truth will not be made manifest. For the break of the morn of divine guidance must needs follow the darkness of the night of error. Well, once again, we could discuss this paragraph for a very long time. It's so rich in meaning. But the inspiration I want to share from it is about the need for us to be trustworthy. Of course, we have an obligation to teach, right? To share this wonderful message of Baha'u'llah. If we are not regarded as being trustworthy, then other souls won't look to us as a source of truth. And then whatever words we share with them will immediately be in doubt. And so we need to practice absolute truthfulness, absolute trustworthiness. And when we are seen as being both of those things, and we share what we believe is the truth with other people, what a greater effect that is going to have. So this quotation is a real motivation for us to take on those beautiful qualities. And once again, bottom right, you can see a direct link to that particular paragraph. So dear people, this is all I wanted to share in this particular presentation. I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I hope to be posting many, many more, just like the one you've viewed right now. So until the next time, be well, be happy, be safe, and thank you once again for taking your time to look at this video.